everybody. I decided to show you how to do a sine or cosine graph using 2 points from your function graph thing. Because there aren't any videos on YouTube on how to do this with basically everything, with the period, showing you how to get the increments, the phase shift, midline, amplitude, vertical shift, and then how to get both omega and phi, which are like the most annoying things on earth to do when it comes to these kinds of graphs. So figure, let's go ahead and get started. First thing we have to do is find the period. It's just easy. But in order to do that, we need to know how many periods are between the points 11 pi over 3, comma 10, and 5 pi, comma 50. So if we go and we count it out, we've got 1, 2, 3.5 periods, which is the same thing as saying that we've got 7 halves periods in between this whole entire thing. That whole section right there, 7 halves of a period. So what we do is we start out by taking the 5 pi and subtracting 11 pi over 3, which turns into 14 pi over 3. So I'll go ahead and I'll write that down over here. And then what we need to do is we need to take the 14 pi over 3 and divide it by 7 halves, which is the same thing as saying multiplying it by 2/7, which goes and gives you 28 pi over 21. And then if you go and you simplify that, you end up with 4 pi over 3. So once we have that done, we have our period for, in between each little section, and we need to find the increments of each of those periods. So we take our initial period, which was the 4 pi over 3, we multiply it by 1/4, and that ends up giving us pi over 3. So once we have that, next we need to do is we need to find the phase shift. Well, now that we know what the increments are, we know that if we want to do this for a sine graph, that sine originally starts out right there, going in the positive direction that way. So what we needed to do was we need to use the increments that we were given. So we're just adding one increment to this little spot right here. So we know that our graph was shifted over 2 pi over 3. So it's basically pi over 3 plus pi over 3. It's this point right here, and then we're adding that guy right there. So that gets turned into 2 pi over 3 is our phase shift. The midline will always be the addition of the y-coordinates on these graphs divided by 2. It's a very easy way of thinking about it. So it'll be 50 plus 10 divided by 2, which ends up giving you 30. Because 60 divided by 2 is 30. Easy. The amplitude will always be these two y-coordinates subtracted by each other, divided by 2. So now it becomes 50 minus 10 divided by 2. Yes, going in that order, otherwise you end up with negatives, and yeah, you don't want that. That's just evil and mean and cruel, and you'll just torture yourself. So we get 20 for the amplitude. The vertical shift is no, my bad, I'm sorry. The midline and the vertical shift are always going to be the same, since that's what this guy is right in here, and obviously that's just where it started out and all that fun stuff. So whatever you find the midline to be, you can always find the vertical shift because they're always exactly the same. So we know off the bat that our vertical shift is 30. So now that we have all of these guys, we can easily find what omega and phi are. But guess we'll go ahead and we can write it out now if we like to. But I think I'll go ahead and do this first. Omega, as we know, is always going to be 2 pi over the current period that we have. So that will get written as 2 pi over the 4 pi over 3. We can go ahead and we can manipulate this around and we get 2 pi over 1 multiplied by 3 over 4 pi. The pi's cancel out, that 2 goes away, that gets turned into 2, so we end up with 3 halves in the end. And then in order to find phi, we multiply our phase shift, because phi is the phase shift, we have to multiply it by whatever omega is that we got. So we go and we take what our phase shift was, plug it in down here, so that's 2 pi over 3, and we multiply it by 3 halves. Look at that. 3's cancel out, the 2's cancel out. We end up with phi is just pi. It's not so bad once you do it in all these steps and all these orders. And I really hope you guys can see everything that I'm doing as well. Looks big enough on my thing, but you never know on YouTube. You might have to make the screen the entire size of your screen, but you guys should be able to see it all anyway. So, when we go and we write out what the equation is, we have to write it out as y equals, and I'm going to write how it says it in the book right up on top, a sine of omega x minus phi plus b. Alright, that's how it looks in the book. So for us, now all we have to do is plug it in. Our A is the amplitude, which we found out is 20. We did this for a sine graph, so we keep the sine right there. We found out what omega is, which is 3 halves. Our x stays the same. We found out that our phi is pi, so we are subtracting pi from it, and b is going to be the vertical shift, which is 30. And there you go. That's how it is for a sine graph. If we wanted to do it for a cosine graph, the period, the increments, the amplitude, and omega all stay the same. The only things that change are the phase shift and b. And so if you wanted to do it for a cosine graph, you can make it super simple on yourself. Take this point, a point that you're given, and make it a negative cosine graph. So it could be negative 20 cosine. So that way, because we all know that cosine originally starts on the top going down. So since this point that we're given right here is at the bottom going up, we'll just make it negative. Haha, that's really super simple and easy. So since omega stays the same, we're not changing the 3 halves x. That's really awesome too. And in order to find out what the new phase shift is going to be, we're just multiplying right here. That was the phase shift of the cosine graph is 11, haha, it's pi over 3. So we're taking that and multiplying it by the 3 halves, which was what omega was. And that ends up giving us pi over 2. I'll actually do it out here for you. So I'm still going to write it right there. So it's going to be our pi over 2. So phi for this, I love how I do that. Okay, got phi. That's going to be the pi over 3 multiplied by 3 halves. And as you see, those cancel out, and that just gives you the pi over 2 as the end result for phi. And then in order to be able to find what b is, this time we are just taking, I don't remember entirely sure why one of the instructors said this, but it's just, she says that b is 10 minus 1. don't entirely see why she did that, but for the cosine graph, she says it's +9. That one, if you guys know any better, go ahead and change that one. Granted, I apologize, I did this quite a few weeks ago, but I guarantee that that B is the only thing that I'm not entirely seeing. But everything else I guarantee is correct. So, yeah. I really am not seeing it right now, but 10 minus 1. Oh, nope, I still don't see it. Anyway, I'm sorry to be wasting your guys' time now, but that is really how you do it, with the exception of this guy. I'm going to put a little star next to it. I saw it. I know I remember seeing that when she was giving the example, but feel free to write in the comments below on where, if you guys recognize where that comes from as a reminder to me, or what have you. But yeah, these guys are really freaking annoying. So, but I showed you how to do 2 of them. This, I don't know. I just took it because that was exam day, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I understand the rest of it, and hopefully he doesn't ask for another one. And he didn't. So, good luck, everybody, and I hope to see some comments down below. Have a good day.